Hello folks, today is Tuesday, February 6th, 2024. My name is Todor Vodov and this is the 21st episode of Keeping It Realistic. In this show, in collaboration with Chaos, we live review projects posted in the Chaos Campus Facebook group within the last 7 days, talking about their strengths but also pointing out their weaknesses and suggesting eventual ways to improve them. We do this as a live event so that you can actively participate in the discussion of the works, ask questions, share your opinions, talk with each other, or just generally say hi, as I see a lot of you already do. Hi Mario, hi Helen. I hope you're having a good week already. I hope your day today started nicely. From now on it will only get better. As usual, in the beginning, we will take a moment to appreciate our cover image. Helen says it's a cool background picture. It really is cool indeed. Nice pun, Helen. So, yeah, what we have here are 3 of the contenders for the December 23, January 24 challenge. The works were contributed by Alessio, Abdy, also known as AS Art, 3D and Motion Graphics, and Kama. For Alessio, it's already the 4th or even the 5th time, so mad respect for this. And for Abdy and Kama, it is a first feature, so congrats for that as well. We'll discuss the works in a few minutes. Before that, I wanted to share some interesting stuff with you. So I'm back, you can see me now, and we can go check very quickly a few news. I see Abdy joined us. Hi Abdy. First, we have this short video shared by Konstantinos from Mesh Mastery. It's about leaving notes in Max. It may not sound like much, but it's actually a very nice function. I'll just play the video and we can briefly talk about it afterwards.
You know you can leave a note in 3ds Max?
A note? What note?
Press Ctrl X and then type note, then select Add Pop-up Note. Then just write a message and your note will pop up the next time you open the file.
Noted.
Did you?
I love those videos, I gotta admit. They're short, on point, and also funny. I really enjoy them. So this note function is actually quite useful, to be honest, because you can remind yourself about some stuff that you didn't manage to finish on your current session. So next time you open your file, it will just automatically pop up at your face and you know what to do. And it's especially great if you share a file with somebody else, with another artist, and you work in the same file. It's of course a great way to communicate, because let's say you work on this file, you do some changes, you can then write them all down, and next time the other artist opens the file, the message will immediately pop up, which is, I think, a great function. A small one, but really a cool one. Next, as a next topic, is this article by Ricardo Eloy on how AI rendering is revolutionizing architectural design. I already shared it in the group a few days ago, but I also wanted to show it with you, show it here once again, because I find this article to be very nicely balanced. It's neither a song of praise about how awesome AI is, nor is it one of those doomsday scenarios about how AI will steal our jobs. There are just different aspects that are explained here very clearly and also in a short way. It doesn't get boring, but there is a lot of food for thought here. So maybe if you haven't read it, do so and let us then talk about this. I mean, it would be really cool if somebody shares something, if we actually get to talk about it, get to discuss it. I know that some of the people in this group, like Mario, who is here today, Simon, Amir, actually use AI actively, some for fun, others more actually as far as I know, Mario even has a small course on AI. I think it's about inpainting and, updating the looks of your 3D people with the help of Stable Diffusion, if I'm not mistaken. So let us talk about it. And even if you don't like AI, if you hate it, if you despise it, that's okay. We're an open community. Everybody's opinion counts. You don't have to, follow the group pressure and say what is expected from you to say. Just say what you think. Let us discuss. I think this is what makes a nice community. Amit says, hi Theo and hi, oh, you look much fresh, mate, than last session. I look fresh. Oh, okay. Thank you. Good to know. So, enough about this, and let's not forget the article is by Ricardo Eloy, the man behind CG Architect. The podcast by CG Architect is coming to this group in the second half of February, so very soon. I'm very excited. And when we talk about excitement, let's check the next topic that I quickly wanted to show you. It's the Chaos Unboxed. I share the link to this in the group, and when you click or when you follow the link, you land here. Here it says a new way to discover, learn, and participate in the future of visualization. Sign up for updates. I'm not sure what to expect out of this. You see on February 27th at 11 a.m. or 5 p.m. CET, whatever, on YouTube, there would be this virtual event where we will know more about this. I'm really curious what the whole thing is about because I really don't know. If you have any ideas or guesses, gladly let me know in the comments. As far as I can tell, Chaos is cooking something, and it's actually a lot this year because, it's not only this Chaos Unboxed thing, which I don't know the size of, the scale of, but it is obviously something big. There are events planned. One of those is going to be in Berlin, and I'll probably go visit it in March this year. So it's going to be a big thing, but also we have all of those new shows. It's like we will start the year with 3 new shows to our group, and again, all of them for free and all of them very different and exciting. I already know the host for the show, which will, like the second new show, which will be introduced in March this year, but I won't spoil it because I want to tell you about the show when I know more so that we can all get together, be happy and excited about it. But anyway, yeah, and because of this, because of all the cooking which is done and Chaos, all the stuff that they prepare for the community, because you see a lot of it's community oriented. It's not like making a new software. Maybe there is something new, I don't know, but there is a lot of stuff which is really to nurture the community. They're quite busy, and this is why, because I see Mario here. You know how in the beginning of December Mario actually won the challenge for November, which was to recreate a scene, and part of his prize was actually sharing his work on the social media channels of Chaos, which still hasn't happened. So almost 2 months later. I'm very sorry about this, dear Mario, but rest assured it will happen. Everything that is promised, he will happen. It just takes a bit longer currently because it's they're currently doing a lot. And also, to be honest, it's actually Claudio and I who decided to start with these challenges a bit earlier. They were planned for this year, sometime this year, but we were impatient. We just wanted to start doing this in the community. So yeah, we started them maybe a bit early, but I don't regret anything. I very much enjoy them, and I hope you do too. So yeah, I see you say, oh, it's okay, no worries. Yeah, but we haven't forgotten about this. It's actually in the works, but currently because of all the other stuff happening at Chaos, this part is a bit slower, just so you know. Thomas joined us. Hi, man. And with this, I think we've had enough of news for today. I think it's time to take a look at the monthly challenge. Before we do so, let me remind you that we try to keep the show at 1.5 hours. Obviously, today we'll very much mostly concentrate on the outcome of our challenge for December and January. And for this will probably take an hour or something, or let's say until 5. And then we'll have probably around half an hour to talk about the other projects that have been posted in the group normally. So just so you know, we just try to keep it lower so that you have more time on your hands and don't feel stressed out because of all the shows that are at your disposal. So Kama joined us right on time because right now we'll start talking about the monthly challenge. Dear Kama, we have Abdy here already. We have you. Who we don't have is Alessio. Alessio is driving right now. We talked yesterday. He's on his way and he said he will try to join in while driving. I'm not a fan of this. He can just watch the recording because safety and health have higher priority than watching the show live. So yeah, probably he's excused. So with this being said, we had this challenge which started in December 2023 and ended on January 31st, 2024. The topic of it was winter in the city. There were 2 months to... Oh, you're stuck in traffic. Hi, Alessio. Glad to have you. But yeah, once you're not stuck in traffic anymore, just leave your phone be and just concentrate on driving, please. Glad to have you here, though. So anyway, the participants had 2 months to concept a scene and then create this winter in the city. So this urban scene with a winter feeling to it, not necessarily with snow, but with this cold feeling so that it's visible that we have something wintry. The 3 best works will get prizes in form of licenses for Chaos render software of choice and social media mentioned by Chaos. As we see, this is a bit on the slower side, but it will happen. And as long as the quality of the works meets the quality standards of Chaos, not only the first one, but all 3 works will be featured on the social media channels of Chaos, which is, of course, great exposure next to this red logo we all know. So, without any further ado, let's just dive in and start going through the works one by one in a chronological order. This means we start with Abdy's work. Let's see what he writes. Hi everyone, here is my contribution for the monthly challenge, January 2024. The entire scene is created in 3ds Max using different plugins such as i2 Software RailClone and TypeFlow and Polysnow. RailClone was used for the creation and the distribution of the road, street and the streetlights. TypeFlow and Polysnow plugins were very useful for the creation of the snow sitting on objects and the falling snowflakes in the scene. Is it TypeFlow for the falling snow? Please let us know. Used some 3D models from the Chaos Cosmos and the Kitbash 3D Cargo library. Chaos Vantage was used for both the live preview and the final render output in 4K using 2400 samples. Some minor color corrections were done in Adobe Photoshop. Enjoy. Great description, especially in terms of technical info. We don't only know the software combination that you use, but also what you use single elements or plugins for, which is always great. We also know your render setup. Again, very useful information. Generally speaking, I wish you shared a bit more info about the scene itself, the idea of it, the concept of it, because you concepted it. It's your own, it's the child of your own imagination. So it's always great to see the idea, what your thoughts were behind this one. Abdy says, yes, falling snow is done with TypeFlow. Yeah, this is probably the easier way, because years ago, working on a winter scene, I tried to do it without TypeFlow, and it was really difficult and heavy to render, to be honest. But yeah, with this being said, enough about the presentation. Let's review the work. First and foremost, is the task fulfilled? Is it winter in the city? I would say it definitely is. The concept is like very naturalistic. It's one very authentic looking urban scene, like something that a common person who obviously lives in a big American city, it will be able to see at some point in their life. It looks like some kind of a secondary side street in a winter evening with some of the shops closed here. It's probably not the most posh area of the town. It's more like a working class quarter. And generally, I get a bit of this 80s, 90s action movies or creamy movies vibe, and I personally enjoy that a lot. The modeling to me looks, I'll just hide this so that we can take a better look at it. Part of it is now hidden behind me, but yeah, you have to deal with it. Modeling looks generally very good to me. There is an impressive amount of detail to this scene. This must be said. There is just so much, which obviously makes it look very authentic, very lively. The snow generally also looks great. I like how you didn't just make snow, but you actually there is some sense to it. Like in front of entrances, it's actually being cleared out. This is some really cool attention to detail. Now, something like the shoes hanging on this lamp here, I know that in the USA this is something people do. I'm not sure exactly why. I don't know if you rendered it out or if it's added in post-production, but it's just adds to those mass of nice, really cool details, which there is a ton of in this scene. Abdy says it is a city in change. Okay. Now, regarding the snow, a bit on the negative side, I find it to be kind of spiky, partially. If you take a look at this, there are some areas that look kind of sharp, and actually when snow falls, it does the exact opposite. It doesn't create sharp edges, it actually smoothens them out, usually. And also there are some areas where the snow is a bit hovering. It's not a big deal, it's not immediately visible, but just so you know. Also, some of the elements of this scene are a bit computer game asset, like, let's say, the Euro palettes here on the side. Let me hide myself so that you can see them. So those palettes here, they look a bit computer gamey. Some of the others aren't that very realistic, but I think it's just a part of the looks of your scene. Abdy says the shoes are also done with Tyflow too. Okay, well, this is amazing. I gotta admit this, because I really thought that you put them there in post-production, but that you actually invest the time to hang their shoes with the help of Tyflow or whatever plugin is some commitment. Really cool. Okay, the main car, also talking about those computer game prop looking assets. The taxi car, I'm also not the biggest fan of. I think that there are some better American taxi assets, because they are very classic, they're popular. I think that there are generally some better assets there, but nevertheless, modeling wise, great. Materials also look very good to me. I really like the wetness of those ground materials. First of all, they make a lot of sense. You have a lot of snow, but usually on walkways and streets, it's melting or it's being cleaned up. But as it still snows heavily a lot, then it's normal for both the sidewalk and the street to actually still be wet. And the good thing about this wetness is not only does it make sense in terms of real life, but it also gives you those very, very nice colorful reflections. The other thing, I like that there are some imperfections here and there. Like, it's the city is not perfect, so it's good to see those imperfections. They make for this random, slightly messy urban look. And also, of course, those neon lit up signs that you have, they are great. They add a lot of atmosphere and emotion to this scene. Next, we have the lighting, and I think the lighting is the thing that makes a real difference on this scene. Your lighting hierarchy really works, in my opinion. You have the GI being soft, coldish, diffuse evening light. It's believable. It also fits the time of day when it snows. And it's the time of day, but the process when it snows, usually the sky would be a bit hazy, or the whole atmosphere would be a bit hazy. The sky will be bluish or like a metallic color. It's never a blue sky or a sundown or sunset or whatever. The street lamps, you have the technical lighting, you have the street lamps with a certain rhythm to them, which is pretty nice, especially seen in perspective. And last but not least, you have all the neon logos, the billboards, the illuminated shop signs that there are a ton of, that make the whole atmosphere of this image. And the end result of the mix of all those different lights is one very lively scene. Personally, I think that the light cone produced by those street lamps could be larger. Usually, I mean, if you plan it correctly, lamps like this should cover the whole street so that there aren't these dark gaps in the street, because if you have them like that, it's a bit tricky to drive, especially in the city, because you have a nicely lit area and then you have this dark shadowy area and then again a nicely lit area. So not the most pleasant when you're driving, but that's a bit nitpicky, let's be honest. Framing wise, I like the composition. It feels balanced to me. And, despite the ton of stuff which there is to see in this scene, I would still say that it doesn't feel visually overwhelming. Like the viewer can still perceive small storytelling details. Like, let's take a look at the shoes, for example. You have blurry background behind them so that they can, even though they're not very visible, and if you imagine being there in this time of the day, the shoes won't be better visible than they are currently in your image. But we can also see, let's say, the person here in the back, even though they're so far away and also blurred out, we can still see how they're crossing the street, which adds this element of like solitude. Probably all the other people are already home with their families or, dining or whatever. And just like single people are going here and there, still being outside at this time of the day. And of course, using depth of field for this scene also helps a lot with creating a focus and not an overwhelming image, because without it, it would be too much. And this leads me to the next point, which is the effects, because you did a really good job with the distance, fog or haze, whatever you want to call it, because it also helps a lot with the focus. Because if we had all those buildings and all the stuff that we currently see being blurred out and kind of washed out because of the fog, if it wasn't there, the blurriness and the fog, then we would clearly see it, and the image will immediately become visually overwhelming and not a pleasure to look at. But the way it is composed now, you can clearly see the taxi, the person in the back, the situation here with the bicycle. Like you see that it's just a cluster of stuff here. There is a cluster of stuff there. It's like there is a ton of stuff, but the single elements are actually nicely, clearly visible. Post-production wise, it seems fine to me. It seems like you use, as an effect, you use chromatic aberration. Personally, I think it's overdone. It's too much, in my opinion. If I were you, I would reduce it. But maybe just it belongs to the style, the visual style of your image, because this is a topic. I think that the image isn't like massively photorealistic. It's more creative and atmospheric, and it has its own visual style. It's made with a lot of love and attention to detail. It's clearly visible. I think that everybody will agree. It's not only pleasant to look at, it also kind of manages to transport mentally the viewer to this location so that they can imagine actually being there, which is of course great. And again, it has its more own visual style, which isn't like that photorealistic, but very consistent, I would say, in all of its elements. And if you want to go for a more photorealistic look, then I recommend playing around with tone mapping and maybe being more careful with the choice of some assets that are closer to the camera or that are main actors in your scene. With this being said, we can move on to the next work, which is Kamas. He writes, "Hello, dear community. Here is my 3D rendering for the monthly Winter in the City challenge. Thank you and good luck to everyone. It's done in Max, V-Ray and Photoshop." Another good description, very kindly put together. By the way, wishing luck to the others is also really cool. The software combination that you have used, we know, similar to Abdy, I also wish that you just shared a bit more info about your idea, about the scene and so on. Obviously, the main concept of all of those images is to create an urban winter image. I know this, but why did you decide to go for this woman or this, or just, like, what was your general idea? What were your goals or what were your challenges? Let's talk about this. In the meantime, we can just come to reviewing, and again, we will start with the same question. Is the task fulfilled? Is it winter in the city? It absolutely is. It's a really nice looking urban scene. It's probably a more central part of the city than... It could be the same city actually as Abdy's, but it would be, this here is more central part, and maybe judging by the buildings, I don't know, maybe a different type of city. Abdy's look more like New York. This could more be Boston, or I don't know. I've never been to the USA, but I've seen a lot of movies. Regarding the time of the day, it's also probably earlier than Abdy's image, because he was like early evening, and this here looks more like late afternoon. And it's generally speaking a very architectural shot, I would say, because it really concentrates on this one building and the whole building situation, but this one, of course, the most. Modeling wise, it also looks fine to me, with a lot of urban and architectural elements. You see there are tons of different types of windows to the buildings, and then we have the traffic lights, the street signs. We have even some stuff like park bikes, which also very much belong in big cities nowadays. We have the trees and so on, just a lot of stuff which makes for a lively and authentic urban feeling. Now, on the negative side, it's a small nitpick, admittedly. The curb in the front looks quite edgy. Not sure, there could be many reasons for this. One of them being that the curve here just needs more interpolation, just make it adaptive and then it would work. Or the curb geometry itself just needs more interpolation or more edges so that it can bend more nicely. And the other thing is the arm of this smart driver here. It's awesome that you actually put in a driver on the inside of the car, which is so close to the camera. Kudos for that. But the arm currently looks a bit unnatural, let's call it like this. But maybe it's a bit more of a gangster driver, even though I don't think that gangster drivers really go for smart cars. Anyway, material wise, I really like the scene. Generally looks good, especially on the buildings. First of all, you have achieved a very nice mix of different materials here, and also that they go together well, and we have a really nice color palette, especially on this building and the one which is directly attached to it. Like we have this complementary red and green, but in very desaturated, which is really, really, really cool. Now, some colors opposite to the buildings, because there the coloring is really awesome. When it comes to the street space, some colors may need some desaturation, especially let's take a look at this car here. I think it is very saturated first, and secondly, it has this direct, probably street light on it, which even enhances the intensity of the color. And if you compare this red car to everything else at street level, you will see that it sticks out like a main character in an anime. Like it's very too visible and too visually important, which it actually shouldn't be, because it's just an element of the scene. And same goes more or less for this blue Porsche here. Now, the blue color generally fits the tonality of this scene, but it's very saturated and so close to the edge, you actually don't want to have that much saturation, because it draws the viewer's attention there, but it's just, the part of a car, and that's it. Kama says it's from Chaos Cosmos, the car, the smart itself, or the driver. Let me know. Now, regarding materials, something more important is the way the sidewalk and the street look like, because the way you have depicted them, it looks more icy than snowy. And ice in the city is actually not a good association for grown-ups. If you're a kid and you imagine sliding around, it's cool. But if you're a grown-up, you just imagine, slipping and breaking a leg or an arm or something. Or if you're a driver, like as a pedestrian, and if you're a driver, you just imagine not being able to brake when you have to, and maybe driving into somebody or something. So it shouldn't actually look icy. Now, this looks like a major section in a city, and usually it's not like the heaviest snowfall that we have here. So usually a section like this would be cleared by maintenance services, and by the number of cars, I'm sorry, it was the German word, the number of cars driving on it. So it would actually just be a wet asphalt surface and not a snowy or an icy one as depicted here, which, by the way, I think is better because currently you have the curbs. They are completely free of any snow and ice, and next to them you have like the snowy and or icy sidewalk and the icy street. It looks a bit awkward, to be honest. So if I were you, I would just swap this material here for a wet asphalt material, and I think this will give you almost better framing because this area and the sidewalk area will become darker because now there will only be wet, which usually makes them darker, but they will also become more reflective. So you'll get some of those really nice reflections here, and they will be even stronger than they are now. Yeah, regarding the materials, one last thing. Oh yeah, here the street material is also kind of overscaled. You can see it when we zoom in, or we have zoomed in as much as possible. They are a bit, the material here or the mapping seems overscaled. So yeah, just go for wet asphalt. I think it would be the better choice. If you really want to, towards or around the edges, using an AO map, you can just make some snowy areas if you really want to. And one thing about the vehicles, I really like the vehicles that you have used, but especially this one I like a lot. I think it's a Mazda, but one thing, a lot of them look very, very clean. And you see there is like a heavy, not like mid-heavy snowfall. The woman here needs an umbrella for it. And then you see how a lot of the cars are kind of too clean, not even wet or anything. Now, here on the Porsche, you actually added some snow around the tires, which is a nice touch, but doesn't make so much sense in the city because, again, here it would actually be only be wet area. To have so much snow on the tires means you are driving on snow, which is something which is more for the mountains or like suburban cities, but not really for a central location in a big city like this. And here it seems like you added some snow onto the Smart. Maybe we see some of it here on the roof, but you also have snow on the tire. And obviously this doesn't make a lot of sense because in order for the Smart to be where it is now, the tires must have rolled for a while, so no snow will be, staying atop of that. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic, which is Flatson joiners. Hi Flatson. Next topic is the lighting. I find the lighting here to be really, really pleasant because we have this nice gradual transition between the natural light that we see a lot of up here and the artificial light areas that we have a lot of down here. So the global illumination plus the sky are really soft and pleasant. Also, the sky is very convincing. When it snows, again, you don't see clouds, you don't see stuff. You only see a grayish, maybe sometimes partially bluish, as in your case, sky, and that's it. So this is really great. And then the other aspect of the lighting, especially when it comes to artificial lighting, is here this lobby of the hotel. It's very strongly illuminated and easily becomes an eye catcher, especially given how everything around it is quite dark. So we have this strong contrast here. And with this becoming an eye catcher, together, of course, with the form of this building and everything, I'll talk about it in a minute, the building becomes more important than the surroundings, which is okay. There is nothing wrong with that, but it's something that needs to be said or something that you need to know. So it becomes very important, more important than everything else. You say it was difficult to me to choose the type of material for the road. I can imagine that where you live, there isn't a lot of snow. So actually, big up for you for actually creating such an amazing snow scene. You don't have to excuse yourself at all. Framing wise, it's one obviously very dynamic composition. It's the combination of the FOV together with the automatic vertical tilt on the edges and the building form itself, because this edge of the building is actually a sharp one. It's not a 90-degree angle. It's less than 90 degree, if I'm not mistaken. Also, what you have done composition-wise really nicely is the contrast between this person, this small person in the front, and the huge or large building in the back. It's a really cool storytelling element. Now, seeing this, I immediately thought that it would be the image will have an even stronger impact if the cars down here and the people were all motion blurred, because then it will look like a frame in time, like very cinematic thing. The woman is standing still watching the building obviously is also standing still, it's a building, but everything else is just moving, dynamically moving. So it's the time of day, the illumination that you have here allows for natural looking motion blur. So if you imagine all the other cars being just motion blurred and the people also being motion blurred, and then you have only this woman being static and the building as well, I think that it will make even the visual conversation between those two elements even stronger. This is just how I imagine it to be. Effects wise, the falling snow looks really nice. I would assume that this is an overlay rather than rendered snow, but you're there, so gladly let me know how it actually is. Post-production seems fine to me as well. So in conclusion, another great contender. I see also here a lot of effort and desire put into this work. It's a pleasant and relatable scene. The only mandatory fix that I see are really the materials on the sidewalk and the street. Just make them wet and more shiny. Make sure not to overdo them, because then they can again turn into icy. So they just have to look wet, maybe with some noise map in the wetness. But again, respect to you, because you don't really have a lot of snow, if at all, but you still manage to create a very convincing snowy scene. If I have to, try to put this work in a few words, it's maybe not that creative and emotional, but on the other hand, it is more realistic and also more client oriented, because if a client sees it in your portfolio, they may go, oh, you know what, I want something like this for my building. You say, I have to learn to make motion blur in Max. In Photoshop, it's tricky. Yeah, make it in Max. It's really easy. There are tons of tutorials out there. It's just more or less 2 keyframes that you need, and the rest you can just make over your camera settings. It's easy. And if I were you, I would really try this out. Change those materials for darker, wetter ones, and try the motion blur, and let's see how it goes. Abdy says the footprints are giant, just as a side hint. I don't think that these are footprints, Abdy. I think that these are just places where the material underneath, the sidewalk material, is showing. So this is more like a noise map. So no, these are not footprints. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to Alessio's work. Alessio, are you still there, or are you driving already? I'll read what you wrote. My entry for the contest, it's done in Cinema 4D, Corona 11 and Photoshop. Short description, it's enough. We know the software combination. And again, here for a third time, especially, if we take a brief look at this image, there is a lot of emotion to it. So gladly share the background idea for it at least. Let's review it. First of all, the same question as with the other two. Is the task fulfilled? I would say it absolutely is. Concept-wise, I would call it a very emotional take on a classic scene, because this scene is actually a classic one. It's the Manhattan Bridge viewed from Brooklyn, New York. This is how it looks like in real life. It's great inspiration, to be honest. And what I really like about it is that instead of concentrating on the scene, you decided to recreate it enough for it to be a backdrop to the story that you want to tell with this image, and I really, really enjoy this. The modeling looks solid to me. Again, we have a lot of, let me zoom in. Again, we have a lot of nice urban elements, the street lights, the bus stop, the traffic lights, and so on. The street and the snowbank themselves also look pretty nice. This thing here is called snowbank. This is where the snowplow usually removes the snow from the street, and it gathers on the side of the street, and this is what we call a snowbank. For those of you who didn't know, for example, I didn't. It's very convincing modeling wise, especially in combination with the parked cars. And the cars themselves, the snowy vehicles, really look convincing and really nice. Maybe some of them, like this SUV here to the right, are a bit too splotchy, or the snow on it has too many holes. Personally, I think it looks more realistic when there are less holes in it. But yeah, let's go with a nitpick. I also like how you added this small construction site in the front. It just adds to the storytelling and to the natural feeling of this situation. Now, what isn't that great, in my opinion, is how there is a certain inconsistency when it comes to the snowy elements. Like, you see that the street has been very snowy. That's why we have the snowbank here. The cars are full of snow, and then we have elements that are completely not, like, they are immune against snow. Like, if we take a look at this bus stop, for example, or the sign of it here, the lamps, the stuff here in the front on the construction side, the concrete elements, the traffic cones, also the buildings themselves, the window sills, the ledges, they just have absolutely no snow to them. And this is a bit of a pity that there is no consistency here. Like, the bridge is far away, it's behind a lot of fog. I think that this is okay with that we don't see snow on it, but the elements that are close to the camera should actually have it in terms of consistency. Second thing is that those traffic lights here don't make a lot of sense to me, because I don't see another street, like a perpendicular street, going somewhere here. Maybe there is one, there seems to be a space for one, and the way the cars are parked, there could be one actually, but then the snowbank should have been discontinued here, and it should have made it visible that there is a street there, because currently the only street that we see is the one that the woman is positioned on. Now, material wise, I like the very pleasant, desaturated color scheme of this work. It's nicely supporting the general idea of the shot, which to me is to represent this solitude. The snowy street looks good to me as well. And the dirty snowbank too, even though it could use a bit more displacement maybe. Now, the tire tracks from a truck or something here on the snowbank look kind of strange, especially how they're continued here through the construction site and for so long. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And partially, I miss a better material transition here, because if we take a look at the snow here, we have the snowbank, and this traffic cone is just stuck in it, but there is really no connection between both those two materials. It looks a bit like in a computer game from the 2000s or something, because they're just two different things that absolutely don't fuse together. Like, let's say these concrete elements or the cones here, they were a bit wet or something, then it could be the connection between those different surfaces would be given. But the way it is now, it just isn't there. And generally, there is this lack of reflectivity on the surfaces that should actually be wet. Even if we look at the snow here, the areas where we see the asphalt of the street, it's something which should actually be wet and kind of reflective. The snow itself should also be more reflective, and something like the cones here or something, they should also be that, like, to show the wetness, because it's currently heavily snowing. Like, so I miss this consistency here again. Lighting wise, in terms of storytelling, I like this image a lot. It's kind of dim, which adds to the feeling of solitude, in my opinion. It also nicely transmits the winter coldness of like evening winter or the winter evening. At the same time, it doesn't feel the lighting doesn't feel optimally balanced, because like if you take a look, all of the lighting elements are situated to the right. The street lamps, the traffic light, the bus stop sign, everything is to the right, and to the left we have nothing. Now I know that in the original, the lamps are actually also placed only on one side, but if you take a closer look, you'll see that they overhang the street almost to its middle, first of all, and so yours are way nearer to the sidewalk and they don't overhang as much. And I can imagine that the actual lamps that are there are hanging so much and actually manage to illuminate the whole street and not only one part of it, because this doesn't feel very fair. What happens if you drive in the opposite direction, right? And the second thing is, I think that you can just furtherly improve this scene, like with more reflectivity on your materials, you have also nicer reflections from all the lamps. And also don't forget, if the lamps in the original real life scene are only on the right, the task here isn't to recreate the real life scene, it's to actually create a winter in the city scene. So you're always free to just copy those or make instances of those lamps and just mirror them on the other side of the street. If you don't want to, if you want to stick to the original situation, you can then maybe find an alternative. Let's say if there is actually a street here, you can place a snowplow there. A snowplow, usually because it's like a maintenance vehicle, it has one of those orange lights that are constantly rotating on top of it. So it can create something interesting with light as opposed to everything what's happening to the right side on the left side, for example. So I think that there could be more that you can do with lights. If you have a construction site, for example, usually construction sites have those blinking orange lights so that people don't drive into them at night or something. So I think there is room for potential for further improvement when it comes to the topic of lighting. Also, the buildings themselves, I think that in real life, this is something for office or industry usage. But again, the task wasn't to recreate something from the real life, but just to make something, a nice urban scene. So I think that if you maybe partially have some dimly lit windows, you don't want to take away the attention from this thing here, but if you have dimly lit windows here and there, I think that the scene would be more relatable at some point, because if you had those windows, I don't think that this will make the solitude aspect of your storytelling go away. On the contrary, if this woman is standing here on her own and all around there are those like lights, maybe families being together or people just being in their homes, and she's just standing there on her own, being alone among people, then it actually emphasizes the storytelling aspect of your work, in my opinion. Now, framing wise, it's a cool composition. As with Kama, we have a similar contrast between the small person and the large structure in the back, which is a very nice storytelling element. It's also this person in the middle of the road in a big city. To me, this is a nice depiction of solitude as well. For a more balanced framing, I would extend the cropping downwards a bit. I made a version of it like this. I just gave it a bit more room to breathe. Then the woman seems even more lonesome. Once again, emphasizing her loneliness. When it comes to the falling snow, it really looks good. It looks like rendered snow because it's dark in front of the sky and bright underneath light, which is a very, very nice effect, in my opinion. The post-production is also cool. The image has very nice contrast to it. Maybe the whole image is partially underexposed, but we can always argue on that because maybe this underexposure is just part of the storytelling. Alessio says, Cinema 4D particle system. And Mike is here. Finally, I got to see you live doing great, Theo. Glad to see you, Mike. Yeah, so in conclusion, this is one very emotional work. I'll go back to the original and not talk over my extended version of it, with some really, really nice storytelling to it. It's very open for interpretations, which I personally enjoy a lot. I just recommend furtherly developing the illumination concept of this work. try to make most out of, you already have a very, very cool scene, but lighting wise, it's a bit underwhelming. And I think you can do more. Gladly check out the Creative Lighting Masterclass with Nikos, which is available for free since the partnership with Chaos. So if you are not attending it already, maybe check it out. I think this will inspire you. And if you decide to make a newly lit version of this image, please share it again with the community. I really want to see it. If I have to put it in one sentence, to me, this is a bit of a mix of an atmospheric and realistic image. It's probably more on the emotional side, but also maybe not quite decisive on which way it wants to go more. Is it more about like the Archviz image like Kama did, or let's say more of a, let's say, emotional things like what Abdy did? Now, let's continue because I'm almost talking for 40 minutes now, and I wanted to have a half an hour to talk about other stuff. So there are two other works that had the Winter in the City hashtag to them by Jihan, both quite nice. The first one is this one. This is really, really sweet, but I wouldn't call it like an urban scene, right? Because yeah, it's more of a village, or even in the direction of nature and landscaping with some houses rather than actual urban situation. Nevertheless, it's a pretty cool image. I really like it. It could be, especially in this part of it, could be like a fragment for, I don't know, Christmas card or something. The post-production, however, here is kind of weird. The vignetting is very, very strong. And also, I don't know what post-production effect you use, Jihan, but it's kind of over the top. We see this fakeish glow around the trees, and here very visible. So yeah, I don't know what happened here, but this is not that great. Then there is this other image which I really like, and it better fits the task because this could be an urban situation actually. Obviously not a big American city, more like an Eastern European small city, but still a city one. However, there is this thing that both of those images weren't created for this challenge. They existed before this. They were made in 2014 or 16, if I'm not mistaken. So unfortunately, they cannot participate. And let me here be very, very clear about this. There is absolutely no ill intention on Jihan's side. It's actually like this. He just posted these two images and I saw them and I thought, oh, they probably belong to this competition. So I kind of pushed him. You see me here asking, oh, is it mean as an entry for the Winter in the City challenge? So he added this hashtag afterwards. So I don't think he meant to have them in the challenge and kind of forced him into it. So yeah, it was a misunderstanding. I'm sorry about it. I didn't know, but I cannot accept them be a part of the challenge because for the challenge we had this time frame from January, and the images had to be created for the challenge, which isn't the case in this here. However, I want to share with you something because this image, I upscaled it here a bit for you to see. I actually really like it. As Mike says, for some countries this is Manhattan. It's cool. It's very authentic. I have seen situations like this in the country where I come from, Bulgaria. Don't think that all the cities there look like this, but actually there is nothing wrong with that. The houses may be a bit old, but there is a lot of romantic to this, to be honest. And what I wanted to show you here is to show some love to Jihan as well. For this, on Evermotion, there is a making of Winter, how this scene is made, and it's actually wonderful to look at. You see Jihan's references, you see how he actually does some sketches before starting his work. You see his modeling, it's quite detailed. By the way, there are some material settings to view as well. Lighting settings and everything. It is wonderful. I had a lot of fun going through all of this and reading it. There is so much information here. So I'll just share this link with you in the comments now. Gladly check it out and give Jihan some love. Mike says, lovely work. I think it lacks some warmth, but overall I like your input. It's I think it's great. I really love it. It's very authentic as well, but yeah, unfortunately it cannot participate. And with this being said, it looks like we have 3 prizes and also 3 participants. So one thing's for sure, everyone will get something, which I think is awesome. And now what we need to take a look at is the exact placement. Now, we went through these images multiple times. It was a really careful consideration. And when I say we, I mean myself with the awesome co-juring help by Nikos Nikolopoulos. And independent from each other, we ended up having the same final ranking. So just so you know, this is, I will announce it now, and then I hope you agree with it. Really very much depending on the group and depending on how you want to view those works, the order can be actually more or less the other way around. It's just the way Nikos and I see it. You know, this field is very subjective, so yeah. Let's take a look at it. I'll start announcing with the 3rd place, which is winning a 1-month license for any chaos render software of your choosing, which means V-Ray, Corona, Enscape, or Vantage. Plus the social media mentioned by Chaos, because all 3 works deserve it, so all 3 will be mentioned by Chaos. And on the 3rd place, we have Alessio. Congratulations. On the 2nd place, winning a 3-month license for any chaos render software of your choosing. I won't talk it anymore. Plus social media mentioned by Chaos, we have Kama. So you guessed it, on the 1st place, winning a 6-month license of any chaos render software of your choosing, plus social media mentioned by Chaos, we have Abdy. Congratulations to all of you. For Kama, on the first challenge, I think he was 3rd. This time he's 2nd. So for the next challenge, we already know something, or maybe not. I hope you're happy with this. I hope you can understand our ranking. I'm sure, again, as I said in the beginning, depending on the way you want to view it, like if Chaos Campus was a purely Archviz group, then probably it would have been a different ranking, with probably Kama coming first and then Alessio, maybe, I don't know, Abdi being the last one. It just very much depends on the way you want to see it. What we liked about Abdi's work is that it has its own style. It doesn't matter that it is not so realistic, because photorealism, again, isn't this ultimate answer to everything. It's just a cool work with a lot of love and attention to it, and the style of it is very consistent. It may look a bit like a computer game, but again, photorealism isn't always the answer. You can, personally, I'm currently learning stable diffusion, and while going through different models, there are some which are very, very photorealistic, and it's impressive. But to be honest, the ones that catch my attention the most are the ones that are more like creative and have their own distinct style. With this, I don't want to say that photorealism isn't important. Again, you can view these works the way you want and have your own order, and it won't be wrong. It was a close call anyway. I wouldn't say there is a definite winner and a definite loser or something like this. I think all 3 artists very much deserved this, and I'm very thankful for your contributions. It was awesome to see them, and I'm looking forward to the next challenges. Amit says, congratulations guys. Mike, woo, yeah, well deserved. Amit, work well done and challenge fulfilled. Abdi, thank you so much. Helen is happy. Okay, I think that with this being said, we can actually now go to the works. And we have half an hour for the works that have been posted in the last 7 days, a selection of them. Please, to the 3 winners, please contact me with your personal, via Messenger, with your personal stuff, so that we can I can forward all of it to Chaos. And we hope that this time everything goes quicker and smoother, also the social media mention as well. Now, let's completely change the topic and take a look at something different. And it's this work by Roman. He writes, stylized cat statuette. I made this model more than 2 years ago. Only now I found the time and energy to give a few final touches. The main prototype and source of inspiration was my cat Sioma. The software done is ZBrush, 3ds Max, Corona Renderer, and Adobe Photoshop. Thank you for watching. So I decided to start with this one because I find it to be just something different and something quite cool and unusual. The model here is, we can all agree, pretty awesome. I would really love to see the mesh of it. So Roman, if you're watching the live now or the recording later, please share the mesh with us. It would be awesome to see it. I also very much enjoy the lighting and the presentation. It's cool, it's simple yet precise. It makes the modeling and the material really, really nicely stick out. And this is what this whole work is about. So it works. It's simple, but it works. Texture-wise, it also looks great. I'm really curious to know how this material was achieved. Given that you have done it now, my guess would be that there is a lot of usage of the Corona curvature on it. But yeah, maybe Corona AO as well. Probably the final material is more complex than that, but just judging by what we see here, I can imagine that it's something like this. If you decided to share a screenshot of the setup, it would be awesome. Of course, I would be personally very thankful. Regarding possible improvements, which obviously is a nitpicking on the highest order, but I find that this large or larger edgeless areas are maybe a bit too uniform in terms of material. So maybe adding some patina spots or sprinkles partially would make it a bit more interesting. Something like this. If you take a look at this fox, for example, you'll see the patina here on the tail, sprinkles here and there, scratches, darker areas. I think this will make the material more lively. Then we have this oxidation here. And oxidation generally isn't as smooth as it is depicted here. It's more like a splotchy layer of algae which comes atop of the metal material. Like you see this one here, it's brass, and then you see or bronze, and then you see how it looks like. I had a better example. This one, you see it looks more like mold or algae or something. So I think that if you try to go with your material in this direction, the cat will end up looking even cooler. And of course, for the close-ups, if you had imperfections here and there, maybe a dent or a scratch or whatever, it would obviously also add to this. But apart from all that, it's a really great project, and I really hope Sioma liked this one. Now let's move on to Ario's work. Now it's been a long time since we last talked about something which Ario did, so it would be a pleasure to talk about his interior here. He writes, "Hello everyone, I share with you my latest work. It's a living room done by me. The software used is 3ds Max, Corona, and Photoshop. Your opinions, thank you." I guess you mean you will appreciate our opinions and you'll be very thankful for them, so we'll gladly give them to you. At least I will. Your description is really nice. You know, in the beginning we talk about this general presentation of your project. Description wise it is nice, but given that it is like your own concept, you can gladly add a bit more info on it, what you were going after. Did you want to just, let's say, play with a certain color scheme or a certain maybe furnishing style or whatever? Just share a bit more info. It's an educational community, so it's always a pleasure to know more about the projects. When it comes to the image presentation, I like how consistent the images are, and also the angles seem more or less nicely varied, so good presentation overall. Now let's take a closer look Design-wise, I like the design of this apartment. First of all, the color palette, it's earth tones, and also the materials that you've used very much correspond to it. So the browns are mostly really wood, and something like this is actual stone. So this is pretty cool. It also seems rather functional, which is great. Like the spaces seem pleasantly proportioned. Nothing is really too tight or too close to each other, so that's cool. And one thing that I really want to point out and praise in this work, it is something that is maybe just important to me, but I really like how you have used this room divider shelf system here. Because I often see them put in wrong places, but here it is exactly the way it should be. First of all, let's take a look at it architecturally. We have this area here, which is something like a corridor with lots of doors to it. And if we had a wall here, then this area wouldn't get enough natural light. If it was open, then this dining area will be flowing too much into the corridor, which doesn't give it the sense of privacy it actually needs. But with this shelf system placed here, it is great because it lets the natural light reach this corridor area, but it also makes some privacy for the dining area, which is awesome. And also the way it aligns with both walls, the wooden one and the white one here, and it also leaves a nicely large enough gap here, is just the way it should be. So it's a really good example of how to use those shelf systems. Modeling wise, to be honest, there isn't so much to say about the modeling because there isn't a ton of modeling. It's mostly assets and then just the room concept. What is there seems solid to me. The chosen assets also have some really decent quality to them, which is really important in order to achieve a more realistic and convincing scene. Now, regarding the positioning of the assets, I really want to show you something. Let's take a look at this table. And especially the tableware and the chairs. It looks like it was initially a rectangular table plate that you just swapped for this oval one, and it really shows. With a table form like this, you have the chairs tilted a bit to the side or rotated a bit to the side to follow this oval form here, and also you have the tableware be closer to the chairs, closer to the edge, and also follow the oval form of the table plate. So, and also generally speaking, when you put some assets into your scene, not everything needs to be perfectly aligned or have a 90-degree angle. There are all those angles in between. So if you rotate something, let's say have a 5-degree angle rotation, and then it just feels more natural because nobody goes there and aligns every chair perfectly once they leave the dining table, right? They just put it there. So you don't even need this angle alignment. You can just freely place your chair wherever you want and just let it be. You can eyeball it in this case because the eyeballing leads to a more authentic looking and more random final look. Also, let's go back to the first shot. If you have something like this, I don't think this is a battery operated lamp, so it definitely needs a cable. And also avoid asset repetition, please. You have this nice wall art, it very much fits the color concept and the whole interior design, but with two of them, it's just laziness, right? And whether just get rid of one of them or just use a different one for the second wall art. Material-wise, I think that the materials go together well. They mostly also look quite nice and authentic. Now, there is a certain texture repetition to the wooden wall. Here, to avoid it, just use FloorGen or Real Clone and then use the Corona randomize UVW map on your material, and then the problem will be gone and the wall will end up looking way better than it does now. Lighting wise, the lighting does the job. Everything is sufficiently illuminated, but it is also kind of very basic, and also because of that, kind of emotionless. So maybe to inspire you a bit, I want to show you something by an artist called lay on or unlay, I'm not sure. Let me show you his work. He very much likes to experiment with light, especially on his more recent projects, but there are also projects like this where there is, let's say, this more codish and classic light. But just take a look at maybe this one. Just take a look at the lighting of this image. It is so emotional. Like, obviously all the elements of the image are good, the composition is great and so on, but the lighting is just so strong, so emotional, and you can achieve so much just by using the the correct lighting or some interesting lighting. So in your case, it is not even a commercial project, it is your own personal work. You can do with it whatever you please. So then gladly experiment with something like this. So I will now share his Behance profile with you. Go give him some love and go through his works. I'm sure that this will really, really inspire you a lot. At least this is what it does with me. Now, framing wise, I think we can just go through the images one by one, because the framing here is actually the main issue with this work, to be honest. Starting with the first one, this is actually pretty solid framing. I don't think that this is an issue that you cut off the back table of the back leg of this table, because everybody can envision how it looks like. And if you have extended the cropping to the left, then there would have been a lot of empty wall space to look at, which wouldn't have been aesthetically pleasing. Now the right side here is kind of cramped, so maybe you can consider extending your cropping a bit to the right, but this one isn't among the problematic ones. Now this one, however, this is not okay, because what you did here is you actually removed the room divider in this shot, and I really cannot say why. Because first of all, it makes for an unrealistic room perception, because in real life people would actually have this massive room divider here, and you just, remove it for the shot, which obviously isn't especially authentic. And also it leaves you with a lot of empty, boring, monotonous space here in the front where nothing happens. I must admit, those floor tiles really look nice, but they're not enough to fill this space. So the solution here would probably be to place the camera somewhere on one of the shelves or between two shelves in this room divider, and then take a shot, and you have some kind of a natural framing, like something like this. You see here the camera is placed on the shelf, and then you can still view the whole room from the shelf. Next, we have this one, which is also not a very good angle for two reasons. First of all, the main lighting is coming from behind the camera, which in probably 95% of the cases results in a flat image with no real depth to it, and you can see this here very clearly. And the second thing is that the viewer is mostly confronted with those closed, unapproachable backs and sides of furniture, which obviously isn't especially inviting. What you can do here is to remove this one chair, as you did on the very first shot. If we go back, you see that the chair that actually belongs here isn't there anymore. So do the same with this one, just remove it. Then the whole living room situation will become more inviting, more approachable, and then shift the whole camera to the right so that you concentrate more on this topic and less on the empty wooden wall. Next, we have this one. Those of you who follow the show know that I don't like camera clipping shots. I'm not a fan, because the depiction of this wall is simply unrealistic. Nobody will ever be able to view it like this. It's like a fake angle, an impossible one. Additionally, you also removed the couch here, which doesn't make it any more realistic. Now, previously, when we were talking about the competition, we talked about that photorealism isn't always the answer. And I still stand to this, to what I said there. So generally, camera clipping is not something that I'm generally against. I just think that it produces more technical images. Like if you want to show, let's say, your client how this wall looks like, top to bottom, side to side, or if you want to show it to some builders so that they can imagine what they have to build and how they have to build it, then using camera clipping is great. In that case, I will even remove the dining table, the chairs and the table here so that the whole wall is visible. But it provides a more technical angle or way to view this wall. What I like to do, especially if I want to present a certain, let's say, interior design, I try to be like a real photographer. And a real photographer obviously cannot just clip through walls or just quickly remove large pieces of furniture or walls or whatever. So a real photographer should find a way to depict an apartment being inside of it in real life. And this is what I try to do with my work. So this is why I never clip through walls or something if I don't want to make something technical. And if so, even if this was the case here, your framing is very undecisive. Like you don't properly show the living room because it barely fits in the framing, and the living room as well because the table is already cut off. So if you do something like this, then do it right and then extend the cropping to your liking until you see like the whole living room. Now regarding the moving of small, more mobile pieces of furniture, this is something else. This is something what photographers actually do in real life, like the chair here, for example. This is why I advise you to do so. Something like what you've done here. Just remove the one chair, put it to the side in order to take a photo. This is something very legit. This is something what photographers do. But when it comes to like really big stuff like this shelf system here or something like the couch, then it becomes over the top and I wouldn't advise you to do it. Next shot. It's a good idea, but kind of a bad implementation. I know that you're a fan of these types of shots from above. You do them on almost every project, and that's very fine. But no matter what type of angle you prefer, a good composition is always essential. In your case, the framing, however, is off. Obviously, the main actor here is the dining table, but it doesn't even fit into your framing in order for you to show what more of the couch or the table. This doesn't make a lot of sense. Just turn the camera a bit to fit in the whole dining table, because this is like what you concentrate on. Let me show you. If you extend the cropping to the left and downwards, you see how much better this image immediately becomes, because your main actor is visible as a whole and everything else are just details from its surrounding. Okay, let's go back here. And we're back at the first shot. All in all, I'd say this is really good work. Just pay more attention to topics like framing and composition. And also, maybe inspired by works like this, try to utilize light in a more emotional way. And one last technical tip, render larger images with more sharpness to them, because these images never looked sharp. If they are kind of slightly blurry, so maybe check your render settings in V-Ray to make a bit more sharper images. Okay, next we have Abdy. We talked a lot about Abdy already, so I won't be talking about the image itself, but I want to tell you something different. Abdy writes here, created this in 3ds Max using TyFlow for cloth and physics simulations. And this is what I think we should be talking about here. Because I know this asset. It's a bread roll from the Bridge library. You know, it's this one. And I also know the other asset. This is a wooden bowl, again, from the Quixel library. The thing is, though, they are both separated. You have a single bread roll and you have this wooden bowl. And now if you tried to fill, oh, sorry, this is not something I wanted to click. If you tried to fill this bowl with this bread, especially for a close-up like this, so that there are no intersections, no clipping and so on, you can easily need 2 hours for that. with the help of TypeFlow, I'm not an expert on TypeFlow at all, but I know that with the help of TypeFlow, you can do something like this in literally 2 minutes. The next thing Abdy talks about is the cloth for this table. And I can bet that you have certainly spent time fiddling around with an FFD modifier, trying to make a certain blanket or a tablecloth fit to your sofa or your table or whatever. And again, I think that with the help of a plugin like TypeFlow, you can do something like this in, again, 2 or 3 minutes. So Abdy says it is made for an upcoming tutorial series dedicated to the topic of TypeFlow for Archviz. Oh, this is exactly what I wanted to suggest. I wanted to ask you if you would be eager to do something like this, like something like TypeFlow for Archviz, like the simple stuff. Of course, with TypeFlow, if I'm a part of the TypeFlow Facebook group for whatever reason, I cannot use TypeFlow at all, but I know that people can do a lot of very complex stuff with TypeFlow, which of course needs a lot of knowledge, a lot of time invested, which a lot of us don't have. But I think that stuff like this, filling out a bowl, let's say we have cherries, something which is really small, and you want to fill a glass bowl with them, it would take forever. And knowing a solution, which by the way is free, because as far as I know, the basic version of TypeFlow is free, and the pro version is only if you need like to use multiple GPUs and stuff like this. So being able to use a free plugin easily to create stuff like blankets or filling stuff or other things. I know flags, I think we can also easily do with TypeFlow, stuff like that. If you really create this series dedicated TypeFlow for Archviz, this sounds amazing. Just basic stuff. I think one of the videos should definitely be showing what can be done with TypeFlow, maybe just as stock images or just real life photos, not rendered stuff, but just so that we know what can be done with TypeFlow, and then maybe how to install it and how to make it work. But yeah, I mean, a tutorial series like this is what I wanted to actually build up of, that we can ask you to do something like this. And it's amazing to know that you're actually already working on it, because I think it would be really, really useful. And again, it's a free plugin, which can make our life easier. So let's use it, I'd say. Amit says, eagerly waiting for it. Abdi, heard people using TypeFlow for Archviz, but there are very few showing exactly how to use it for daily needs in Archviz. Agree with Theo, very much basics to application. Abdi says, I will consider all of your inputs. Thank you very much for it. Oh, this sounds awesome. I'm really looking forward to it, because I hate looking for the right blanket or stuff, or sometimes I really need to feel exactly the way you have shown it here. I have a bowl and I have something to fill it, but I don't know how to do it, or I do it manually and it takes forever. So if I don't have to do it in future, I would love this. So eagerly waiting for this, same as Amit. Next we have Rita's project. It's great to talk about this one, and it will be a very interesting review, you'll see. Rita writes, this project is in the heart of Paris, nested in the 9th district. A personalized design extends to every corner with custom crafted furniture tailored to individual tastes. This project is designed by the architect Naji Sleiman, and I brought his ideas to life through the renders. Together we unleashed our creativity to turn his design into a vibrant and captivating reality. It's done in Max and Corona, and there is better resolution on Behance. So wonderful description. Not only do we know where or how you did it, but also have some background info on the project. The image presentation, obviously also very consistent. So I would say let's take a closer look at this very nice project. Generally speaking, I very, very much enjoy the elegant simplicity of this project, especially for whatever reason. I'm usually not a big fan of bedrooms, but in this case, I very much enjoy the bedroom. Not sure about the lamp here, to be honest. Like in a combination of 3 differently sized lamps in the living room, here's the living room, and the dining room, I find it really nice. Here, however, it's kind of wrong for me. It's like a kitchen lamp or a dining lamp in the bedroom, I think that a ceiling lamp would have been the better choice here, but this is very subjective. Nevertheless, the color palette is wonderful, especially visible on an image like this. The beige and the green are really wonderful together. The furnishing is very elegant. The elements go together really, really well, in my opinion. The framings are very nicely put off. So, really cool project. However, in this case, Rita got some really cool and detailed feedback by Amit, who is here in the comments. So, what we'll be doing now, we will go through Amit's comment, and then I will just give my opinion on both what he means and what Rita's work is. So this is like a very interesting thing, because we don't only have, as usual, it's me on the one side and the original creator on the other, but we have actually somebody, Amit in this case, who provided feedback, and I will reflect on his feedback to Rita's work and also comment a bit on it, which I think is a very interesting constellation. We can gladly do more of it in future if you also enjoy it. So let's start reading. Amit says, it's an awesome project, Rita. I love the tones, the soft lighting, and the most I loved were the frosted hanging lamps. Sorry, Amit, I'll try it once again. It's an awesome project, Rita. I love the tones, the soft lighting, and the most I loved were the frosted hanging lamps. You can see them either as frosted plastic or as frosted glass, depends on what your mind makes them visualize to you. Personally, I see them as frosted plastic, to be honest, which conflicts me a bit, to be honest, because I don't think that plastic fits in this type of elegant concept, but visually it does. However, there are some points to be taken care of. First, the flooring bump, reflection, and the type of mapping on them takes away the charm of the entire image. If it was suggested by the client himself, herself, very politically correct, then there is not much what you can do. But if not, then you can reduce the bump to a subtle one, make the reflections a bit less, and the mapping can be made more randomized. Right now, I think it's just two-way randomized. Now, here I very much agree with you, Amit. Currently, the floor, especially visible on this image, this is why I left it, because here it's not that bad, but on this one, it's very visible. The bump is way too strong. It really needs to be reduced. Also, the grout between those floorboards I find to be too large, to be honest. The pattern to the floorboards also seems kind of overscaled, but maybe it's just that the floorboards are kind of small. I don't know. So I think that making the floor less pronounced, like less bumpy and less patterny, will actually add to the laid-back elegance of this project more than it currently is. Because currently, as you say, Amit, it's kind of too strong. It takes too much attention, especially in a shot like this, especially with this bump, which is kind of heavy. So yeah, I agree with this one, absolutely. Second point is in the third and fourth image, you can crop the upper and lower part a bit so that there is not much empty space. I think Theo would suggest the same. Well, this is the third and this is the fourth one. Yes, we need it in English. There needs to be a word like we have it in German, which is jein, which is the mix of ja and nein, so yes and no. Because in this case, the cropping can be done the way you say, something like, no, sorry, of course I screwed it up. Let me do it once more. So probably maybe something like this. I think that a cropping like this definitely works as well. However, it doesn't feel necessary in this case, and maybe it's even better the way it is, because we have this very heavy set furniture. Now, if we had delicate furniture, you know, the ones with those very thin metallic legs and stuff like this, it could look lost in a framing like this. However, what we have here are these massive pieces of furniture. Just take a look at the tables. These are literal chunks of stone. Also, the armchair and the sofa, they're also quite massive. So if you have so much this heavy type of furniture, I think that giving it a bit of more room to breathe is actually a good decision. This is why personally the framing here or the empty spaces on the ceiling and the floor don't bother me, especially in a case like this where there is also this nice gradient on the ceiling from dark to brighter. I think it's okay the way it is, and again it makes the image have a bit more room to breathe. Let's check the next point. In the third image, you can keep a small artifact or a small vase on the side table as it is empty and is near to the camera. This is the third image. This is what the table Amit is talking about. It is true that both of these elements are quite similar because of the lighting, because of the similar materials to them. They are quite similar to each other here. So having something maybe beige, brown, like we have it in the fireplace or here on the sideboard, here as well, probably will do good, actually. Yeah, I agree with this one. Fourth point, in the fifth and sixth image, if you see in the real world, when any two objects intersect, there is a gap between both of them that creates a small shadow between them. So if you create small gaps where the rafters and the beam meet, it would look more natural. Let's take a look at this. I think this one is the better image to take a closer look. I think you're talking about this area here. And generally, I very much agree. I'm a big sucker for gaps and grouts and so on. However, in this case, I think that it actually works because in a usual situation, what we have here would be overpainted. So you have two different structures, but you paint over them. And the moment you do this, you actually create this kind of a transition, like an almost chamfered transition between the two elements, and you actually hide the gaps with the paint. We have a lot of similar examples to this here at home. So I think this is what happens here, and personally it doesn't bother me. And you continue. These are my observations, which I saw at first glance. Maybe the Theo or other friends can help out more to make this project more lovable and magnificent. Keep up the good work, Rita. Hope to see more from you. Keep rendering. Very cool feedback, dear Amit. I really enjoyed it a lot. Thanks for that, and please keep doing this in future. You've been very active lately, and that's awesome. Now, we didn't talk about the animations, so let's take a brief look at them. This is the first one that I must admit that I don't find to be very attractive, and it is mostly due to this very fast movement, which also doesn't feel natural to me. It's like a drone strafe movement. It doesn't really relate to me. It doesn't feel natural, and to me it also doesn't correspond to the elegance of the apartment. What I imagine is like slower, more gentle movement. Like imagine placing the cam somewhere over those pendant lights and then slightly panning with it and maybe focus shifting between the lamps and the grapes, for example. Something like this I can imagine is kind of will fit this apartment better. And in scene like this, I think that the second animation is better in terms of all of this. I like it more. First of all, it feels like we're approaching this dining table animation, which feels natural. Also, it's inviting and generates just a more elegant movement. So, as usual, it's a very high quality project, but it is to be expected from you, Rita. Maybe really fix the floor because, again, it has some issues. And if I were you, I would try out different animation approaches to make more elegant animations. If you try them out, please share them with us here. I'm really curious to see them. And same as Amit, I'm looking forward to your next project. Amit says, agree with rafter point, Theo, my bad, didn't think of the filling paint. Yeah, well, this is very technical, let's be honest. You can always point it out and then somebody can disagree with it, right? Mario says, Theo, do you have artist studios that inspires you for interiors? No, Pinterest is the studio I always go to when it comes to interiors. Of course, there are works by artists that I like a lot. Like, this is why I showed you An Lee here. This is somebody whose works I really enjoy when it comes to interiors, for example. But I don't have this one like go-to interior designer or something. I just Google what I like. In recent times, I also try to create some own references with the help of AI. And partially it works, partially it doesn't. I just make a mood board and try to make a mix of all the elements in it. Abdy says, I would love to see it with a bit slower camera motion. Yeah, something like this. And yeah, we're over the hour and a half. Mario says, I see, thanks. Yeah, well, I wish I could help you more. I mean, next time I encounter somebody that I really like, or when I get back to somebody that I really like, I can gladly drop you a link for that. Gladly do it. Now, Amjad, we have talked a lot about the works by Amjad, so I don't, same with Abdy's project here with the bread and, you know, the Thai flow stuff. I don't want to talk so much about the project itself. I'll just briefly mention it for 5 minutes and then we are done for the next 2 weeks. So I really like this one. Amjad experiments a lot with interior design, and not every experiment is a good one, and the fruits of it aren't always tasty, so to speak. But in this case, I really, really enjoy what he created here. I don't know if he followed some kind of a reference or something. He says, my design for a living room. I hope you like it. In this case, I really do, Amjad. I think that those elements are really, really nicely put together. It looks, honestly, I can imagine this being some really expensive furniture store where all of these single elements, except the cat, really have a price tag to them, and this is kind of a showroom, but at the same time it doesn't just look like a store or something. It looks comfy. It just has a unique look to it, starting with the wall here, the lamps, the hanging chair. Everything is pretty cool. I really, really enjoy it a lot. However, I wanted to show you 2 or 3 things about this project, about being consistent and having a very clear idea what you show. Because again, this is my honest opinion. We're always honest here in this show, you know this. It's a pleasure to take a look at this scene. I just enjoy watching it. I enjoy the single elements of it and the whole composition. And then we have this close-up. It's okay. Generally speaking, you can use motion blur on those curtains, but that's not important. This is not much of a close-up in my opinion, but I would move closer or further away because currently it's a bit difficult. Nevertheless, some nice depth of field on the curtains. And then we have this. And here we see the inconsistency I was talking about. I don't want to show Amjad's work as a negative example because I praised it so much and I really like it. The negative thing here, however, is that it seems like he didn't have this clear idea, because what we see depicted here absolutely doesn't fit what we see here. Here we have this nice, expensive, massive vintage stuff, which is really costs a lot, but it also looks nice and great. And then here we have some basic gamer, we have the gamer laptop. That's true. That's like the LED RGB laptop, some basic iPhone and some pens. All of these elements are kind of new. They just absolutely don't fit the rest. Mario says that goes in my room. Yeah, you can have it in your room, but probably your room doesn't look like this. And if your room looked like this, then you probably wouldn't be making photos of your damn laptop, right? So again, now this is more like the first shot just in cut. The framing works here again. It's nice, but I also like the main scene as well. Here we have the kitten, which looks like it's Chuck Testa, it's more stuffed, but it's sweet. It's sweet. Maybe this is a case where one can render the model, but then use a bit of stable diffusion or something to make it a bit more lively. Nevertheless, it's sweet. I like this close-up. And then again, this one is better because it shows at least some of the stone structure and this old book, whatnot. But yeah, just take a look at the old, this really vintage-looking book and then this laptop. This just doesn't belong together. And yes, there is eclectic contrast, like elements that visibly are like fire and water, and that don't really belong that much together. But it doesn't always work, and there must be more to it than just, zooming on a laptop. So yeah, when you start a project, see what the good things, the special things, the unique things are about it, and then concentrate on them. Don't make close-ups on a damn casual laptop, being it a gamer one or not. Concentrate on those ones. Those looks like scans, or probably if you make some close-ups on those bowls and vases and so on, you end up having wonderful looking images, even more realistic than the close-ups, and everything will still fit as one nice package. Amit says laptop needs a vintage sleeve to fit in. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, just it's talking about consistency and having this general concept and then following through with it. This is quite important. Yeah, and with this being said, we made it in 1 hour and 40 minutes. Sorry for the 10-minute delay, but I think this was one very, very interesting session, and also very interactive and active one. We talked a lot in the comments, and we should add this time as well. So yeah, remember, next week there will be no show. From now on, we start doing the Keeping It Realistic show every 2 weeks, so that you have more time to actually do your commercial work or have more time for your private life. Remember, this is exactly as important, if actually not more important, to take care of your health, take care of your social life and so on. So we don't want to give you too much in this group, so that at some point you're really overwhelmed and don't like it anymore. It's meant to bring you joy and to make your life a better one. So with the 3 other shows coming, we want to go back a bit with the Keeping It Realistic show, which in turn gives me the possibility to be more active in the group, as you have probably seen, because for the last few months I was just absent from it because it was either my commercial work or preparing the show, and didn't have time to participate actively in the group or in the chat or talk with you. So yeah, now I'll have more time, so we can talk more and maybe discuss different topics. And again, let us talk about AI and just stuff that's on your heart or on your mind. Let us discuss it. Let's be this really cool community. And yeah, so next time we'll see each other on Tuesday, February 20th, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, February 20th. Amit says, very interesting session. Congrats to the winners. Said we will not meet weekly, but it's okay to have something rather than nothing. Also excited for the new shows and interactions. We'll try it out for a few months maybe, and then we'll see. If you really miss the show that much, you can tell us. And again, not only with this show and with every show, gladly give us feedback and let us talk. Let us make it the best to you. You see, we're trying to change stuff a lot so that we can provide this community with the best conditions possible for all of us. So yeah, we'll try it out. If you see that you missed the show so much, we can try to get it back. But of course, this will again mean that I will be less active in the group, which I, to be honest, miss a bit. Abdy says, thank you very much, Theo. Really enjoyed the show. Yeah, I bet you did. Looking forward to the next one. Keep on rocking. Of course, we do. Stay safe. Have a good rest of the week. Hope to see you again in 2 weeks. Don't forget, but I will make an announcement for the next show on time so that you don't forget it. And with this being said, thanks, my friends. It was a pleasure. Rock on and bye. Stay safe.